How's everybody today? Oh. Jim will be delighted that Jay is the first man on scene. The very first. Nice job, Jay. You can see it's not super good. Got my I got my Sloan banner up there. We've changed things up a little bit. We've moved the studio around a bit, of course, to show off the Sloan up there. You still see that? I think got my Sloan shirt on. Looking good here. I'm going to invite Jimmy right now. That's hilarious, though. Snap to attention. Hang on. Let me get him on here. Oh. See if I can do this. It's always
okay. Jim Allen is in the house.
Mr. Baker, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I got you 5x5, brother. Good to see you.
Same here.
Looks
like you did your hair this morning. Looks good, man.
How do you like that?
Yeah.
I've had the same stupid haircut for 50 years, so.
Give me both, man. That's how my mom did it. It's good enough for my mom. It's good enough for me.
Too lazy to change it. Kids probably hate it, but whatever. I don't care. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Sabbath. It's a
Happy
cold
Sabbath.
day there.
What's that?
You're kind of crackly a little bit. Do you have a good connection, or is it me? We'll work through it. Yeah. Happy sort of froze. Oh, shit. Yeah. Bob, you there, buddy?
Is that better?
I can hear you, but you're sort of frozen.
The interwebs.
There you go.
There we go.
There's that glorious view.
What are you, in your movie room, man?
I'm in my basement, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Taking in the football game.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. No spoilers if anybody's watching championship game. Niners are down, but anyway, my Bears have been out of it for a while.
The Bears have sucked forever.
Yeah. They'll be better in a couple of years. We got a new QB. I'm excited, so stay tuned.
It's all hope springs eternal with the quarterbacks, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, typically, well, we don't need to talk football all night, but typically the Bears are, defined by their defense. We get off the bus, running the ball, beat the Packers, all that kind of stuff. But now we have this kind of phenom scrambling quarterback. It's kind of a different look, but it's fun. We'll see.
It's entertaining, right?
Yes, sir.
And who are you cheering for today?
Oh,
nobody.
I'm looking for good football. Yeah, well, I kind of like the Niners, but I have lots of friends in Philly, so I'm right down the middle, man. And then when it comes to the next game, Bengals, they kind of impressed me last week, so I'd like to see if they can pull this out. I mean, Kansas City's not easy to go up against, so I think good football today. So
that's what it's about. Get some good competition, right?
That's right.
That's right. All right, Jim. Why are you here, man? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about Sloan, and then, we'll do the business part. I should just say that this is not a sanctioned event, right? So whatever is about to be said here in the next 65 minutes is not the opinions of the staff or the the companies involved.
Great disclaimer. I did not check with legal before I got on this call, so. Anyway.
I did. They said you're fine.
I think we're fine.
From a Canadian side, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm sure. This is me fulfilling something I told you I'd do, I think, a year ago at least. You and I have been buddies on this platform for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So I told you I'd do it if you wanted me to. So here I am. But I was looking back at some messages that we've shared over the years, and it's like, I can't believe it's been 2 years since you and I have been yucking it up on this thing. And I watch you, religiously, Um, you got some great content, some of those rambling messages, which I enjoy too. But no, it's fantastic, and I'm just glad to be here and talk to a buddy of mine. So
That's what it's about.
why are you here?
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Sloan family angle?
The
That out of the
family,
way.
yeah.
How are you involved with Sloan? What's your deal? Did you go to
I'm
school for it, or what? You apply for a job and you just got it, or what?
It's the
Like
hair.
me?
They saw
It's
the hair, they hired me.
Hair. You gotta have the hair, man.
No, it's a family business, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
My great grandfather, William Elvis Sloan, invented the royal flush valve in 1906. So quite a while, 116, 117 years ago. And the reason why I'm Allen and not Sloan is because I'm a descendant of his daughter's line. So his daughter married Charlie Allen, and he's my grandfather. So, my father is Charles Sloan Allen, and my brother is Charles Sloan Allen Jr. And they're, obviously we're part of the family, but it's sometimes it's kind of nice not having the Sloan name. You can kind of fly a little bit under the radar a little bit, which is good. But it's just it's one of those. Well, Bob, as you said in your teaser, that everybody's touched this thing at some point. A lot of y'all have worked on them.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the public doesn't really notice it. It's one of those things right under everybody's nose. And it's been that way. We've been trying to raise our brand over the last few years, obviously. But anyway, so, it's a family business. My great-grandfather started it. My grandfather was a president. There's such saga. I'm not going to get into like the drama of it all. But my father was all set to go and make his mark on the world on Wall Street after going to Dartmouth in the Ivy League, and he got called back to Chicago saying the family business needs you. There's a little bit of a issue, tough times for the company. And he moved from New York back to Chicago where the company was founded. And he took over, eventually took over, and he was the president until 2008. I became president and CEO in 2008. And if you recall 2008, it was
that was a rough year.
It was July of 2008, and my father, the whole story goes on. We took this concept to the board approved it, and so we made my father executive chairman, and my two brothers and I created the office of the president in 2008. Later in 2008, the entire economy falls off the cliff. And everything stops. I mean, it was, as we all lived through, projects stopped, construction stopped.
Yeah.
As you recall, shovel-ready projects when they're trying to jumpstart the economy and all that shit. I still don't understand exactly where these shovels were sitting, but I know they weren't moving. But for the first couple of years when I took over the company, it was just desperate, dire times. We were layoffs, cutting my own salaries back. Thankfully we have a nice repair parts business, after 117 years of making these things, that helps, but we still rely heavily on new construction. So it was tough. But so we created the office of the president. I'm the middle of three boys. Maybe I should back up to that fact. And, my older brother, Kirk, was destined, to take over as be president, although he didn't really feel comfortable because we're equal owners of the business. We each own the business a third. We pay each other exactly the same amount. We are very, very close. My brothers are my best friends in the world. And so when the concept of, taking over the business was, being kicked around in 2006, my brother's like, well, I don't feel comfortable just because I'm the oldest kid to take the reins. Maybe there's a shared leadership approach. So we studied shared leadership at a school here in Chicago, Loyola. We're part of a family business school there, and we said, "Can you show us some data on shared, family businesses that share leadership?" And there was like none. It was like, well, it's an interesting idea, and if you want, we can, dedicate a couple of resources, some grad students to help you like research it. So we researched it for a couple of years, and we interviewed family businesses that were like 12th generation, third generation, fourth generation, and companies that were successful, companies that failed, and obviously the ones that failed are the more interesting subjects because you learn, kind of what worked and what didn't work and how things fall apart. So net at the end of the day, we came up with a governance document that outlines the structure of the business, and each one of us, as I said earlier, is an equal partner, but we have different roles and responsibilities. So my brother Graham oversees operate all of our operations around the world, and HR. My brother Kirk oversees business development, so sales and marketing and that kind of stuff, and IT, and I oversee new product development and finance. So that's how we divided up the, reporting structures of the organization. And like I said, we put it in place in 2008, and there's all kinds of things in that document. Like if we have a fight or a disagreement or something like that, there's language in there that talks about conflict resolution and so on and so forth. And we have a board of directors, and one of the board members has a half a share. So if there's a disagreement, we can take, and we're divided, 2 and 2. My father and one of my brothers disagrees with me and one of my other brothers. Then we have a half a vote at the board for conflict resolution that's never been exercised.
That's awesome.
Which is, it's totally awesome, which is a testament to the alignment that my two brothers and I share. So, Jason Boyd, who's on this call, unless he dropped off, that loser, he's probably busy.
He showed up. He's like a Zoom meeting. I'm here. And then he shuts off his camera. He's going back to hockey.
Yeah, not back to hockey. He up in Canada, we don't have like the market share we do down here. It's like, up there you've got strong American Standard and some other, Delta Tech up there is pretty big.
Here,
yeah.
He just chimed in.
Oh, hey there. Hey, what's up, Jay? Jason could tell you this whole story. Anyway, Jason is our master distributor up in Canada, so he's knee deep in the Sloan lore. But anyway, I mean, it's kind of a sleepy family business. We fly a little bit under the radar, but within our world, within our sphere of plumbing and so on, we're a trim item. We're not behind the wall. We're in front of the wall with faucets and valves and that type of thing. But the company's been growing. The markets internationally have been a little rough recently, but we do sell all over the world. We manufacture in all of our valves are 100% made at our factory in Chicago, outside Chicago in Franklin Park. And we ship all over the world. So, do we have sources that are outside the U.S.? Of course, everybody does, but largely we're an American manufacturer. And I think there's great advantages to that in this political climate, especially these days. So anyway, did you have any specific questions about the family or?
No, we're gonna try and, me and Jay are gonna try and increase your percentages up here in Canada by like 0.5% maybe or something like that. We'll see what we can do.
in the positive direction, you're hoping? Screw Jason's business.
Maybe you should send your lawyers a cease and desist, and we'll stop talking about Sloan over here. I don't know. Maybe it's harmful to your branding.
Well, who cares? I love Canada. Jason and I, we've yucked it up in Toronto. He's in Toronto, and Toronto is surprisingly close to Chicago. But I just love going up there, going fishing. Up in Winnipeg, points north of there. Up above the boundary, and going for northerns up there is doing a shore lunch. I don't know if there's much better. Seeing a moose, chewing on grass while you're catching fish. It's
No.
God's country up there. I love it. So I love tuning in to seeing the sights and sounds of Calgary when you're cruising around, learning all kinds of things about your weather patterns and whatnot.
That's right. We do have some strange weather over here.
Well,
Although you did send me
the Chinook. Yeah, that's.
the Chinook. That's right.
I looked.
Did you actually Google that and see what learn about the legend of the horse?
I looked it up. Very common at
There you
the downward slope of a mountain range or something or other. I forget. But
Yeah, Argentina, a few places in Arizona, I think, a couple in Europe. Anyway, it's a thing. But you did send me a thing about everybody just about died last week, and no one knew it.
Was that the asteroid that flew past?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I don't know. I'm such a nerd that I follow these weird BBC and stuff. I get an alert like, oh,
You got an alert.
Don't look over here, but there's an asteroid flying closer to the Earth than ever in the history of mankind. And it's like the size of a school bus. And so I'm like, oh, well, that's nice that they just told us that. And they're like, by the way, it's passing by tonight. So thanks for the warning. Some guy discovered it like a week prior. It's one of those things that, holy shit, did we just really dodge a bullet? I mean, it was small enough that it would have burned up in the atmosphere. So I did read up on it after it happened, but it would have burned up. But it's still just a little undaunting to know that there's these, things flying past us, and it flew past us at like 2,200 miles away, which is less than the circumference of the planet Earth. So it flew kind of like within us and the moon. I mean, it was close. I could drive 2,200 miles in a few hours. Anyway, I just, weird stuff like that just sort of gives me a kick, and all that. That was frightening. But anyway.
Well, that started the journey for me this week. Is I had to look that up, and I realized that apparently 48 tons of meteors hit the Earth every day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, geez.
And like you said, most of it gets burned up in the atmosphere as shooting stars and all that sort of stuff. But it's not an uncommon thing. They figure somewhere between 12 and 15 actually hit the Earth every year. Most of them end up in the ocean or some remote place that they can't recover it from, and a few end up in Kansas and obviously Russia.
There you go. Big land masses smack dab in the middle of the United States and Kansas.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly.
those things, you and I are both, I'm not super religious, but I'm a man of faith. And those are one of those things that really sort of make you just thankful, sit back for a second and hold your children a little bit longer or whatever it is, and just sort of say, man, this could all be over in a flash. But let's not be pessimistic. I mean, I'm an optimist. So
okay, well, that's perfect. So, you know what they're talking about down there in the States right now in Congress? I mean, there's a million things that they're talking about down there. So we'll narrow our focus just a tiny bit. They are talking they want everything. They want oversight on all the Area 51 stuff, which they don't have.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Area 51 is an important base for the United States military, and they do a lot of very important work out there. I don't pretend to know anything fucking about it, to be honest with you. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
And if you're easily offended, you may want to sign off because I'm liable to drop.
Listen, if anybody is tuned into this for more than once, then they're not easily offended. They just can. If they are, they're dumb.
Well,
that's what we do here.
Let me put it to you this way: have you noticed? When was the last time that you saw any productive dialogue and cooperation coming out of Washington?
Oh, it's the same up here. I don't. The conversation I had with my kids is I took debate in high school, and you probably did too. It was a subject that you had to take, and so you would there's the rules of debate, right? Where you present your argument and then you argue against the argument, and then everybody gets a rebuttal, and then there's a decision. And all those guys do is yell at each other. Like, it's insanity.
Yeah.
And talk about gas stoves and whatever else they're talking about these days.
Well, I got a question. You know stuff about this stuff. So if gas stoves are a problem, quote, air quotes right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been using them for generations. But what about like a gas log set? Because I have like a gas log set in my living room. It's virtually the same thing, right?
It is the
Maybe worse.
same thing. What about your barbecue? Are you going to ban all the barbecues too?
Yeah, that causes cancer. You got to know that. Well, anyway, I'm all for people staying out of my business. I like to be warned, perhaps, depending on how sound the science is. But anyway, we're all do our own sort of research and make our own decisions like grown-ups, but and not rely on Washington to really do much.
No.
This is, again, my opinion. This is not the Sloan company line.
Listen, I tried to get off the government and go into aliens, but you brought it back to the government.
Well,
and somebody wants to know if you're developing, like, if if there's a Sloan thing on Area 51.
Oh yeah, we have the world's largest collection of private parts from our cameras and our sensor valves. We can we can identify you. You wouldn't know. Those cameras are very high definition, and you should see a doctor, by the way, Bob. Just kidding. It's an old joke. Everyone's always making fun of Sloan. Like, what are they looking at? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's wired right into that big TV right behind you there.
I can
right?
bring it up. You want to see the
database?
Let's
see what happened. Let's see what happened last night.
AI, turn on. I mean, I love the company that I work for. I'm very proud of it. I think it's a great company. I think we make a great product. Are we perfect? No, I don't know anybody that's perfect. But, what I love, and I don't take myself too seriously, as you can tell, but I love a good joke, a good plumbing joke, a good joke about toilets. I've heard them all. I'm pretty sure I've heard them. I'm pretty sure you've heard them all. But if anybody wants to throw down some good plumber jokes, I'm always happy to hear them. Plumbing jokes.
Nobody's got anything new, man. I haven't heard a new one in a long time. I've reached the age where I'm like, yeah, no, I've heard that one. You need to come up with something else, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think, when I watch you and you're doing all these boilers and stuff, and in my opinion, that's a lot more interesting than changing a diaphragm, a Sloan valve, which I'm sure you could probably do in your sleep. But obviously, it's my business, and I'm glad you're out there doing it, and it has to be done. But what I'm just madly impressed by some of the beautiful work that goes on that people don't get to see. I mean, those beautiful, elaborate copper setups, going off boilers and into, whatever they're doing. Like I think I have 3 boilers here, and I was practically sitting over the guy's shoulder. I don't want to interfere while he's working.
One of those dudes.
Yeah, well,
I'm just gonna watch you, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, when I was working and I was out in the field, changing toilets and doing all kinds of work, I'd always say to somebody, I'm like, I don't mind if you watch, but it costs extra. I mean, as long as we agree that, this isn't a show. But, at the end of the day, these beautiful, it's baffling to me how talented you guys are and the work that you guys do. At the end, you have these beautiful shining manifolds, these beautiful press fit connections, and all these, beautiful copper pipes. It's a work of art. It really is. And I tune in and I geek out on some of the folks that have been on this call so far, and I just love it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's really come a long way. Like even your stuff, right? Like you started off with this, and I remember doing boilers and stuff with my grandpa, and it wasn't elaborate at all. There was 2 pipes in and out, the chimney, big ass boiler, the end.
Yeah.
And now, like you say, it's verging on the edge of a bit excessive. I mean, there's some LED light stuff out there, and it's like, which is very cool, but you got to find the right customer that's willing to say, yeah, I'll pay you an extra bucks to make it a showman piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't.
It's all connected. Like I got Techmar controllers on this. I got a few Techmar controllers. I think I got 4 of them to run snow melt around, the outside.
Yeah.
And I can go on my phone on the WhatsApp or Techmar app, whatever it is. Watts owns Techmar, but go in and it like goes to the internet. It says storm approaching, like warming up the system or whatever. I just find that awesome. It's just when it works, it's awesome.
When it works. Okay,
Yeah.
Jimmy, is that your wife? Or are you in trouble? Is your wife on this call?
Where?
Misfit Moose.
Misfit Moose is not my wife. Why? What did she say?
See, it thinks she has fantastic hair. But you have fantastic hair.
Thanks, Moose. Moose has fantastic hair too. I'm sure.
We were just talking about a moose.
Yeah.
Right?
What's up, Moose? Miss you, buddy.
So we were chatting, not you and I, but you jumped in on the comments section. We were talking about Antarctica, and I think you're probably the only one that I know of that's actually been to Antarctica.
No, I said I had friends that were there right now. I've not been there. No,
You haven't been there.
no.
So you can't tell me what's actually over in Antarctica.
Tell you which is what?
You can't tell me what's in that Antarctica.
Yeah. It's
Just your friend.
Frozen rock. Yeah. I've read up on some of these theories and so on, and you Google Earth and you see like this outpost down there. You're like, what the hell's going on down there? And it seems like a right place for aliens to sort of hide out because there's no humans down there.
There's nothing down there. Did you happen to Google? Did you happen to Google New Schwabenland?
No, what's this?
Have you heard of that?
New Schwabenland.
New Schwabenland. Yes.
No.
It's a
Never heard of
thing.
it.
It's legit a thing.
How do you
It's
spell that?
New and then
Yeah.
Charles
Schwabenland.
Schwabenland.
I'll check it out. So what is it? I don't know. Are we gonna bore
New
people with what this is?
Schwabenland. Check out when you got some extra time. Don't cut into your workday. Operation High Jump. Check that out.
Awesome.
And you're gonna have to go a little bit past just the Wikipedia page. You know that. Like the Wikipedia page is like, the door in the wardrobe of the Lion in the Wardrobe. You gotta go down that path a bit. It's crazy.
Down into the rabbit hole, you're saying.
Going into the rabbit. That's a bit. You're going into the rabbit hole.
Operation High Jump.
Operation High Jump. Yep.
Well, there's
In fact,
nightly assignment.
I found something out that some researchers did, which is legit about Salem. Do you know what they figured started the Salem witch trials?
Lead. I have no idea.
Close. They said that it was there was a certain, like when there was a late frost and a wet spring. And when that happens, there's like mold that grows on the barley or whatever, on the bread.
Yeah.
And everybody was tripping on basically LSD for like 2 years until they used up the bread supply. And so everybody's like, that chick is crazy because he's tripping out on stoner bread. And I'm not like, this is not made up. It's a legit theory of what they think happened in Salem.
It sounds plausible, and it sounds like a really bad trip for those witches.
Yeah.
They got screwed.
They got screwed.
It's the bread, man. It's not me. I really,
You throw back your morning bread, and then you walk outside, and you're like, that woman's a witch. I know it. She's
Those were the
doing weird
days.
things. Oh,
Well, that would
well,
be
they
tragic. And
also,
what a dark moment. My God, it's
it is
terrifying,
a
really.
dark moment. They also
But
found that,
yeah,
I was going to say, uh, they I was doing, obviously I do a little bit of digging here and there, but they were talking about the Roman wine that they had back then. They found out that it was laced with like an ergot stuff. So it wasn't like your California wines or something that's good with steak or whatever. Like they got stoned off that stuff.
well, it was probably a lot safer than the water supply at the time. So what I've heard
Yeah.
is, people would be drinking beer and wine and so on at breakfast, and if somebody pulled out a glass of water, they'd be like, "What are you trying to do? Kill yourself? There's cholera in there. My God, drink a beer."
That is true with the freaking with water. Water was so bad that's how beer got its start, right? Like that's what you had to drink because it was killed everything.
Which is a perfect segue to what you do for a living, which is protect and preserve the public health. And without plumbers, we'd all be screwed because there'd be no sanitation, there'd be no clean, drinking water. And I don't know that the rest of the, public totally appreciates it, and that's okay. But I like to mention it any chance I get that don't you ever underestimate the importance of having a working sanitation system. Look back in history; it's pretty much the reason why we can cohabitate in such successful ways in such large numbers. And it's obviously I'm preaching to the choir, but it's obviously critical to everybody. So you're welcome.
It's true. They figure, again, this is a super controversial one, but there's some evidence to back it up that the plumbing, it wasn't vaccines, it was plumbing that changed everybody's health. The fact that we could remove these communicable diseases and deal with them appropriately. There's a big article on it. I can't remember the source of it anymore, but I did read it and said that there's some evidence to suggest that maybe it's, hand in hand with the, development, advances in the medical field, but also developments in plumbing technology that allowed, like you just said, millions of people to cohabitate within whatever that is, a couple 100 square miles, and everybody's happy and healthy and doing their thing, right?
Well, not everybody. I've been to
everybody.
India. I've been to parts of Africa that are, it's such a stark contrast between what we have, in the Western Hemisphere, at least in, Canada, the United States, and modern, quote unquote, Western world, that, we do business in India. Part of the reason why we're doing that is because at one time, the Prime Minister of India said toilets before temples. And what he was trying to say,
really? That was a legit thing that he said?
Yeah, he said toilets before
temple.
Yeah, well, they're spending all this money, like redoing the Red Fort in Delhi, and tons and tons of money to keep up these, beautiful relics, and they have to be sort of dealt with. But what his point was, we need to, begin a journey to a Western style sanitation system, because right now in certain parts of slums in New Delhi, or slums anywhere really, is just basically an open sewer. If you're lucky, you've got some sort of water tank that gets replenished with clean water you can trust, but it's pretty frightening over there, and cholera will break out in one of those communities pretty regularly, and cholera is a terrible thing. But we talk about the importance of what you do for a living, and what a lot of folks that are on this call do for a living, is maintain the public health through a system of modern sanitation. I think we're doing a misservice. This is, again, my opinion, not Sloan, so Bob, bear with me. Every once in a while, like Bill Gates, I think, has this like make the third world toilet that can stand alone or whatever else for these remote African villages and all this stuff. Well, I find that to be very nice of him, very thoughtful, and an exercise worth doing. However, why don't you take those millions of dollars and put in a sewer system, and put in, a sewer treatment facility, and you know, bring that society up into at least a basic level of sanitation. I say that in some circles, and they're like, well, they have to carry the water from, and believe me, I'm not going to stick my head in the lion's head on that one. But I do think we can't leave the rest of the world in the dark, and I also mean not just sanitation, but technology. There's this ever evolving technology in the Western world, AI, the internet, all this stuff, and then there's another part of the world that is literally third world, doesn't have access to that. And how does that play out in 50 years? How does that play out in 100 years, like our grandkids?
Yeah.
What's the world look like? And who's at each other's throats at that point? So I think we need to be thinking now about how we bring everybody up together versus, just throwing something over the wall and say, here's a, compact toilet for you to, use. That's my thought. What do you think of that?
I agree. It's all about but no, like it's all about infrastructure, right? Like they sort of, it's like the portable toilets that you see at the construction site. I mean, that serves a purpose until the system's installed, right? And then once the system's installed, the portable toilets go away because there's operating bathrooms.
Yeah.
So if that's phase one, we'll say Billy's grand plan, which I don't know, but great. But it doesn't seem to be. Just give them those, and then they'll be fine, and we'll worry about something else, right? That's not how that should work or does work.
And meanwhile, the Chinese, here comes the conspiracy.
Uh-oh. The Chinese!
Meanwhile, the Chinese are in Africa, like pouring tons of money into infrastructure. Well, they want the mineral water rights, and they do interesting things because they're thinking on a 100-year time frame versus what we think on. But the Africans have a love-hate feeling about what the Chinese are doing in their homeland. I think it's a huge opportunity for the Western world to lead with compassion on a mission to help these people. Bring them up to at least minimum standards from sanitation.
Yeah.
That's where.
Is that and your work? You are currently working with the government on that?
Me?
The Indian government?
No. No. What we want to do is encourage, because you put a Sloan valve, and everybody who's on the call knows that a Sloan valve works on the mains pressure, right? So you need a 1-inch line coming in. So that's right there is almost like we're dead in the water, because India doesn't have mains pressure. They basically, they fill a tank on the roof of buildings, and they go off the head pressure of a tank on the roof. And they certainly don't use an inch, copper line feeding these things. At least it's some, modern hotels and modern, offices and so on. Yeah, we can convince an architecture firm to kind of put in, a system that works off of a good pressured system. But a lot of the world just works off of gravity pressure, like all over Asia, Thailand, parts of Singapore. Well, not Singapore. Singapore is pretty advanced. But anyway, so what we try and do is we don't want to shove our product down a market's throat that isn't designed for it. So we have engineers and developers there that design products for that market. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be like a Royal 111 flushing a toilet over there. It would be some version of a product that we make just for that marketplace. So
specific purpose. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's a start, though, right?
Yeah.
And you can see what happens on those. You look at you said Singapore, Taiwan, those places were third world countries 50 years ago, and now they're some of them are the technological marvels of the world.
Yeah, same thing happening in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and the Emirates. I got a question for you. So tell me about your family and why are you here? Why are you in the plumbing industry? How did you get to be who you are, where you are?
Everybody knows this story, man. I'm the same as you. My grandpa started it in '56 after he came back from the war in '48. He was he was an aircraft mechanic that worked on there was that the Hawker Hurricanes, part of that initiative to help out with Britain before the U.S. joined the war, and so they were getting all their raw materials here. We were building the planes here and shipping them over to fight the Battle of Britain in whatever that was, 41 to 44, we'll say. And so he was an airplane mechanic here out in Toronto, there in Ontario. And then when when the war was over, he married his wife and went back to what was called rehab therapy, and it was plumbing school. That's what they called it back then. Was when you went in and did a trade, they called it rehab. And I literally have a picture of him in his graduating class, and it says rehab class of whatever it was, 51 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which is cool. And then he came out to Alberta, down in Lethbridge, which is a small town south of here, and worked for a guy for 2 or 3 years, and then came up to Calgary and started his business in '56. He ran it till about 1970, and then my dad took over, and my dad ran it till about 2000, and then I sort of got involved in the day-to-day. And we sort of had a similar plan to what you were talking about, but sometimes the big man upstairs got other plans. My dad passed away in 2006, and so I've been sort of running it. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. None of my other siblings had any interest in the business, and they're off to doing their own thing. And so thankfully I convinced my boys to take up the reins. So I hope to be, 5 years from now, sort of jet setting with Jimmy to Abu Dhabi and Singapore and Taiwan.
Sloan Park.
Yeah, come check out a Cubs game.
Yeah, you have 3 boys and 2 girls. Is that right?
Other way around. 2 boys and 3 girls.
2 boys and
3
girls. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's a wonderful life, and you literally have just started off on your little journey here with your first.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you've held up to your namesake. You covered both the bases. Emerson, Sloan, right?
Yeah. She was born in May, my first child, and thank God I'm super young.
You should know. I was thinking about it yesterday that your oldest daughter is younger than my oldest grandson.
Yeah. My God. I guess I didn't get the memo, Bob. I didn't.
You got the memo. You're doing just. Yeah.
I waited to get married till I found a great girl, and I was having plenty of fun, waiting for that day to come. But we got married 3 years ago, and then Emerson came in May, and I turned 50 in June. So it's like it's a different path, and I think
you're just gonna pay the same price that I paid. It's just a different timeline. That's all.
Well, I'm so much more patient than I was when I was like 25 or 30. I mean, it's like now mentally between the years, I feel like I'm in a perfect place to be dealing with some of this stuff. Whereas when I was a 30-year-old kid, I would have, it would have freaked me out, and I would have tried to control everything. But now with the passage of time, ways, and everything else, you learn you can't control things. What you have to do
You're
is
a little more mellow.
Keep them safe and teach them to be good, kind people in this world, and to work hard and get out of their way.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's exact. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
That's the whole, give it your best effort, you know, try and be amenable, stand up for yourself when people aren't, and then, you know what I mean, let the chips fall where they may, and do the best anytime, everywhere you go, right? What else is there, really?
Well, when I was raised, you know, in the family business, within our business, when you turn 16, you go to work in the factory in the summer when you're off of school, and you start whatever pushing a broom, and then by the time you're in summer 2, summer 3, you're working machine, you're working alongside of guys doing CNC setup work, or you're working, you know, machine making parts. And my grandfather, I remember this is my father's father, telling me, Jim, you've got one obligation when you come in the doors of Sloan Valve Company. If you ever decide to work here, you need to know how to make the best flush valve in the world. And you need to know every machine that's on that shop floor, and you need to know the people that work them, and you need to understand. And I remember my friends were down here on Lake Michigan spinning whistles, you know, on a lifeguard tower. Well, I was getting up at, you know, 3 a.m. to go, you know, report to a machine shop. I made much better money than they did, but it was, you know, it was hard work, and I worked just about every single machine at one point or another. My father would not let us work in the assembly department. Not that, you know, mad respect for every single person that works at Sloan and for the job they do. You know, I love them, and there's nothing I would ask somebody to do that I wasn't willing to do. But my father wouldn't let us work in the assembly department because the assembly department was air conditioned, and he didn't want us sitting there in the air conditioning, you know, bagging parts or something. And so that's just kind of my father's mentality. He's like, he's not going to raise some, you know, people that don't understand the value of a hard day, you know, good, honest day's work. And it's something that was just sort of beating my head. So when I was growing up, I'm like, forget this, man. The last thing I want to do is work for that guy or this company. I mean, I love my father, but, you know, when you're a kid and you're 17 or 18 years old, you're like, man, I don't want to work in here, do this. And so I set off on a different path entirely when I was a young man. And it wasn't until I was probably 25, 26 that I realized what a great company Sloan is and what potential they had. And, you know, and I was working at the time, I was living in the Caribbean, just barely making enough money to pay my bar tab every week. And I just sat there and I'm like, this, as beautiful as this is and everything, you know, I can't like really have a meaningful impact sitting here in this bar in St. Thomas. You know, I've got to get my shit together and get out of here. So I got a call from my father around that time. He's like, we have a job that you might be interested in running a plumbing crew in Atlanta. It's like 13 guys doing plumbing retrofits at in and around a La Quinta hotel in Atlanta. You know, and there was a guy who was running the crew, and I was going to come in and sort of be like, assist him and do some labor work, you know, bring fixtures to the, you know, all this stuff. I think I told you this. I think I told you this story.
I think you told me you certainly told me a version of this story. Yes.
Well, I got into it, and eventually I took the job of running this crew, and we were in Austin, Texas this one time. And we were working, again, La Quinta hotels were changing to low-flow toilets, and we had this, you know, this contract with them to do it. And anyway, we were way ahead of schedule, right? So I'm being a nice guy. It's Friday afternoon. We probably have 2 days of work. We're ahead of schedule, so we'll bang it out Monday, Tuesday next week. A lot of these guys were from Houston, so I'm like, why don't y'all knock it, you know, this is about noon on Friday. Why don't y'all, you know, get down to your families, enjoy the weekend. I think I'm being this nice, cool boss or whatever. I'm like, go, you know, get home to your families, right? And so then I go, whatever, I leave. And then I get a call, what would be about 2:30 or 3 in the morning, or 3 or 4 in the morning on Saturday from the manager of the hotel. So my crew we had rooms and worked in the same hotel. So he's like, did you let your crew go a little bit early? today on Friday. I'm like, yeah, they're, they get a jump on traffic, get back to Houston or whatever. And he's like, well, a couple of them took my key engineer and went down to 6th Street in Austin and bought themselves some crack cocaine, got themselves nice and drunk, and came back to the hotel and got into a fight with each other.
Yeah.
And it was such a bad fight that like one of the guests at the hotel got involved. It was just this, I'm just sitting there, my jaw's dropping. I'm like, oh, Jesus. And I'm like, sir, whatever it takes, we're going to take care of it. If I have to comp the rooms of everybody in the hotel for the night, we will. I'm going to take care of those guys. They're fired, obviously. This is, I got to get these.
Yeah.
He's like, well, they're all still up in their rooms. And I'm like, I'm going to go get them out of here, and we'll knock this job out. I'm so sorry. We'll take care of it. Anything we need to do, please, we'll take care of it. So I go up to the room. I knock on the door. The guy answers the door. Like blood, missing front tooth, blood coming down. And he's got the yellow pages open to attorneys. He's telling me, Jimmy, I gotta call this guy assaulted me. This stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, you're fired. Get your stuff together. I'm driving you to the train station right now. And he's like, no, oh my God, come on. I was, he jumped, whatever. I'm like, you're fired. Let's go. And then I look on the, the credenza there, and there's like a little baggie of what appeared to be crack cocaine. So I grab that, put it in my pocket, and I'm like, come on, let's go. And he's searching around the apartment for something. I'm like, what are you doing? Let's go. He's like, I'm looking for something. I'm like, whatever it is, you don't need it. Let's go. You're fired. Let's go. So I called up my father. This was then like 10 in the morning on Saturday. I'm like, Dad, you wouldn't believe what happened out here in Texas today. He was like, what? I told him this whole story. Oh, and then by the way, I also had in my pocket, the manager of the hotel is like, this is a tooth we found in the parking lot. So give the guy gave him his tooth back. So I'm like, Dad, this is just crazy. I fucked up. I let these guys go early. They get in a fight. I've got this crack in my pocket that the guy was, whatever. My dad's like, you have the plumber's crack in your pocket? I'm like, yep, I do. And there was the punchline of a crazy story. But I learned my lesson about these things now. And it's like, you have to think a couple of steps down the road before you do something nice, because, no good deed goes unpunished in this world. So
that's my mother's favorite saying was no good deed goes unpunished.
It's true.
And it is true. It sounds like we have a very similar upbringing for sure. My father didn't let us get away with anything, and I sort of the same thing, sort of 17, 18. In fact, I told my dad when I left home that I would never going to touch a pipe wrench again. Like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I got into university and I was going to take computer programming and started doing that, and then realized one day that I was going to have to spend my entire life in a cubicle tic-tacking away at this stupid keyboard, and had to come back and beg my dad for forgiveness, mm-hmm. which he did not immediately, give to me. It took a while for that to. He said, "Well, if you're serious, that's fine. You can come back, but you're low man on the totem pole, and you're going to be treated like dirt, and we'll talk, and don't even come and talk about a raise or anything for at least 6 months, so I know you're serious." So it was a bit of a learning circle, and frankly, we should. We need to get together for reals, mm-hmm. because I have 8,000 of those stories of having people work for me that I can't repeat on the internet because they're so horrific. Mm-hmm. But yeah, breaking up fights between girlfriends and boyfriends, and you're just like, what the hell? It's a testament to me, and I suspect it's a testament to you, of what a solid, constructive family circle can bring to your life and the direction that it can give you eventually.
Well, I don't want to make it sound as though I'm saying I certainly fucked up quite a bit.
No, I'm not. Like I say, that's the eventually, right? Like you have, at least you have something to, mm-hmm. If you're coming back home, that there's some expectations of you, right?
Right.
No matter what. I think
that's, yeah. There's something that I think is fundamental in what you've said, and I think a little bit of what I've said is, you know, one of the worst things in the world that you see happen sometimes is parents that spoil children, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
boy, what's going to wind up, that is such a disservice to that child, you know, and what is that person's contribution going to be to this world down the road when they realize shit's not going to be handed to them for the rest of their life? They have to, you know, and you see it sometimes in different communities. I live in a nice community in the North Shore of Chicago, and some of these families, and it's like, what are you thinking, man? You have to put a certain amount of boundaries around some things, and you know, make some kids not get whatever they want. There's nothing more miserable than a spoiled kid that's like Baruch Assault, like I want it now, you know. It's like everybody hates that character because they're so lousy.
Yeah.
And I hate to break it to you, but they don't turn out to be wonderful people either at the end of the day. It's such a disservice. Even though it's hard.
It is hard. And you'll find that out. Like, I'm going to say it to you, Jimmy. Just, you know, your baby girl. I have a baby girl. My oldest is, like, I say to her all the time, there aren't words to express how much I love you. There's just not. Like, I can't manifest it. But at the same time, she'll admit that, and she has said to me, after she's left and got married, she says, you know what, Dad, you are hard. Like, you're hard and have expectations of us, but that has made all the difference, is what I can appreciate and what I see around me, and how I live my life. And so it's a hard thing to be, I don't know what the right word for it is, to be mean to your children for their own benefit. But coming out the other end with, you know, I still have one that's 16, so I got to be a little bit mean to her still. But
Dad, you're ruining my life.
I am. I ruin her life all the time. Oh, you can't take it. What's the score?
I got to turn this off. It just popped back on. I had it paused.
Oh.
TV wants me to get back to football, apparently.
Yeah. Well, we're just about up on the hour. I don't want to take too much of your time. And speaking of which, you've got to put that beautiful baby girl of yours back to bed, or to bed, right?
She just got up behind you. I'm looking at the nanny cam, and Mama just picked her up from her nap. So you're right. I do have a bath to deal with, and football.
Yeah.
Bob, it's good to talk. Good to see you, man. We gotta hang out in person. I mean, I'll come up there. Shoot. I mean, we'll drag Jason over there, and next time you're in Chicago, if you don't call me, you're in big trouble. And
Dude, I will.
Yeah. You better.
No, we will. We're the truth of the matter is I'm a couple of years away from just sort of letting hoping the boys run some few things, and you know what it's like trying to, deal with the handover and takeover of that stuff. But we're getting closer. Well, yeah. What's that?
I said plan for it. I mean, you have to be smart about that. An estate plan involves attorneys, involves terrible scenario.
Like I've said before, you got to have a good accountant and a good lawyer. All right, who's a Pegaphone? Is that Peggy?
Never heard of him.
Pegaphone?
Peggy. Yeah, it's my sister. Hi, Peggy. My pretense. She's not blood, but she is blood. You know what I mean? She's
no. I think I've had a few conversations with Peggy over the years.
Yes,
haven't I?
Have, and she's probably the one who sends you a Sloan shirt that you're wearing, perhaps.
Yes, thanks, Peggy. There it is. I know Jim doesn't know how to mail anything, so Peggy, Jim has a whole whack of shit that he's supposed to send me that he's yet to do it.
I have no clue how to send something to Canada. It's a black hole for me. Peggy, you'll have to jump in on that one.
Stick it in one of your Sloan boxes that you send to me. It'll be fine. It'll work out.
Yeah.
That sounds like your distribution.
Careful what you wish for, Bob.
Any closing thoughts, Jimmy?
No, the only thing I'll say is this has been fun. This is an interesting platform, and I like the way you sum it up on occasion and pontificate about, it has its ups and downs and its good and bad side. But without it, you and I wouldn't be friends, and I consider you a friend. Other people that I've met on this platform, I am not. This is my personal account. This isn't a Sloan account. I'm not on here trying to promote. This isn't a Sloan ad. This is just my personal account, and I follow you because I think you're interesting, clever, and smart, and good at what you do. And if you can't do it, it can't be done. And I dig you, and I'm going to continue to watch pretty much everything you post. But no, I'm glad we came full circle and had this chat. And for the 9 people that came on board and listened to it, thanks for tuning in.
Dude,
Peggy,
it's easily a couple hundred, man.
Yeah, great.
I'll send you the things. Yeah.
Would this get recorded? I mean, some things I'd like to, redact. Can I redact it? Before we?
No.
Shit.
No.
Should have checked with legal.
It's gonna go on YouTube on Tuesday. It'll be on Spotify on tomorrow. So whatever you said, it's freaking gold, man.
Wonderful.
And let me just reciprocate that.
Yes.
And all honesty, it took me like 3 months to figure out who you were when you first followed me. I'm like, who's this Jim Allen dude?
What a weirdo.
So you very much fly under the radar, and you're not pushing anything. And like we've just sort of manifested here, it's fabulous how 2,000 miles and whatever these apps can bring it together, and you can develop a friendship that is remote and meaningful. And you've certainly been very kind to me, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and shared some interesting things that have made me think about, sort of outside my own little bubble here in Calgary, Alberta, of how things work in the world. And I'm certainly appreciative of that. So
that's
awesome.
That's
awesome.
Mutual. And next time you have, you're sitting there on a job site and you have a Royal 111 ESS valve, and you're trying to put an EBF valve body on that sucker. That's not going to work. I'm happy to help out.
Let me just slam Sloan for 2 seconds. I'm like, what in the F? It's the exact same valve except for one tiny little piece.
Well, what you don't see, Mr. Baker, is there's a boring inside the valve body, a hole, so that when that solenoid on an ESS valve trips that solenoid, it actually, because there's a boring inside the valve body, it relieves the pressure in the upper chamber, starts the flush cycle, which is different than on a battery version. There you go. Yes. There's a lot. It looks the same from the outside.
Literally bought 3 of them. I sent them with Isaiah. I'm like, dude, this will take you like half an hour, piece of cake, bing, bang, boom, in, out. He sends me the picture that I sent you with WTF. I'm like, I don't know what the hell. What? How is it different? And of course,
call Dan Walker.
I'll call him. All right. Apparently, Dan Walker's my man.
Dan's there for you. He will take care of
you. Dan, why would I listen? And this is no disrespect to Dan. Why would I call Dan when I have a pipeline to the president that's sitting on the factory floor that can ask his engineer, what does this dumbass need?
I thought I knew. I was just confirming to make sure I didn't give you bunk info. But yeah, anytime you want, Bob, you can bother me. Bother Dan. Fuck Dan.
Dan.
Good to see you, Dan.
What did Jim just say to me? Careful what you wish for, Dan. I'm a pain in the ass. Because everything I deal with is a pain in the ass.
I can hear Dan right now going, bring it. He can take it. He's been through it. He's been through it, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate it, Mr. Baker. You got a great company. You got a great family. You're a great man. It's a really honor. It's a pleasure and honor to speak with you. I see some friends popping in. Ted, what's up, brother? So I'm just there.
You walk.
I should have.
Oh, looks like you got some infighting to deal with, Jimmy.
I can't wait. Come on down to
Chicago.
The
warring tribes have started.
I'll come up to Canada. I'm overdue for a visit.
Oh, so good. So good. All right. Thanks again.
Enjoy
Be
your
safe. Look out
Sunday.
for that baby girl of yours. And go Niners, I guess.
Whatever. It's probably over. I'll watch it. Don't spoil. Don't spoil.
I have no idea. Yeah, I won't spoil it. Peace.
See you later.
Thanks, Jimmy. Bye for now.